Hello everyone and welcome back to Travel Camp Explore. Today we are doing a review of our recent cruise on Royal Caribbean's Harmony of the Seas. Okay, so we've arrived at the ship, walking up the gangway right now. I don't think it would have been too much longer without the key, but it did save some time. So welcome back, my name is Dave and recently my wife Janelle and I took a cruise on Harmony of the Seas. The cruise took place in December 2021, so cruising only restarted a few months ago. So before we get started, a couple of things I would mention. Number one is we have cruised before, primarily on Holland America, and we do have some videos from those trips on this channel. We wanted to try other cruise companies and this was our first cruise on a Royal Caribbean ship. Number two, we have never been on a ship this large. The Holland America ships tend to be around 90,000 gross tons. The Harmony of the Seas is around 230,000 gross tons, so there's a huge difference in the size of the ships. We will be breaking this review into sections and giving pros and cons as we go along. Yes, there were some cons. So let's get started. So category number one is the ship. So first of all, the pros. The ship was very clean and looked brand new. Everywhere you looked, despite being about 6 years old. Most of the time you'll see rust marks somewhere on a cruise ship, maybe around the anchor area, but this ship was spotless. The ship is divided into different sections such as the Royal Promenade, the Boardwalk, Central Park, pool areas, etc. It made it pretty easy to navigate around the ship despite its overall size. Number three, despite its massive size, we felt like it had been designed extremely well. The extra area is really in the width of the ship versus the length. What was nice about that is it did not seem that much larger than other ships we have been on when walking from the forward section to the aft section. Number four, there were several venues that put on different kinds of entertainment. Boleros, On Air, Dog and Bonnet Pub, Schooner Bar, Royal Theatre, Aqua Theatre, Studio B, which is the ice skating rink, Comedy Club, Jazz Club, and we may have even forgotten one or two. There was always something going on, which was great. So I have two cons about the ship. The first is that the size of the ship does restrict some of the ports it can access. And the second con is I think it could benefit from some additional elevators. It wasn't too bad when we were on the ship as it was only sailing at about 55% capacity. However, I can see it being an issue, especially when sailing at full capacity and at busy times like when the show finishes. So that brings us on to category 2, the app. The Royal Caribbean app is very good and has a lot of functionality built in. This includes deck maps, a daily planner which allows you to see what's going on. It shows you the time and venue of the event and allows you to add events that you're interested in to your own calendar. You'll also receive reminders for things you add to your calendar. It also includes reservation functionality for dining and entertainment venues and the ability to review your onboard account. It was very easy to use, very intuitive. We did not have any issues with the app on board. Category 3 is the internet. I've heard bad things about the internet service on board ships before and we have never used it on our previous cruises. However, my wife bought the key during one of the online sales and that did include the Surf and Stream internet package for both of us. Overall, the internet was very good. Definitely good enough to surf the web, handle some emails, and yes, even stream YouTube if you wanted to. That brings us to category 4, which is food. There are a lot of places to eat on board. These would include the main dining room for breakfast, lunch on sea days and dinner, Windjammer Buffet for breakfast, lunch and dinner, although if your cruise is below 50% capacity it will not be open for dinner. There's also the Solarium Bistro. There are also options like the Doghouse, Sorrentos Pizza, Mini Bites, Park Cafe, room service. There are also specialty restaurants such as Johnny Rockets, Sabor, 150 Central Park, Jamie's Italian, Chops Steakhouse, the Hibachi restaurant, and I'm sure I've probably missed a couple of places even then. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of places on board to eat, and even though they do have several specialty restaurants, there are still plenty of options if you don't want to spend any more money on dining. So next I'm going to talk about some of the complimentary dining options that we tried. The first one being the main dining room. We ate most of our dinners in the dining room. I thought the food was excellent. The New York strip steak was very good, but the roast beef tenderloin was my favourite thing in the main dining room. It was very tasty and very tender. Service in the dining room was excellent. We did fixed dining, so we were sitting with the same group of people every night and had the same wait staff. They did an excellent job, learned our names very quickly, and our preferences in terms of drinks. Overall, it was a great experience, and I would definitely do the same thing again on our next cruise with Royal. So the second place was the Windjammer Buffet. We only ate in the Windjammer twice for breakfast and once for lunch. The food there was pretty typical for a cruise buffet. Lots of stations, but quite repetitive. Like most buffets, the food was good, but I would not call it excellent. As I sit here, I cannot think of a highlight when it comes to the food in the buffet. I think it's fair to say Janelle was not impressed, but I felt it was about the same as the buffet on Holland America. The next place that's also a free option was Sorrentos Pizza. This is located in the Royal Promenade. They cook pizza constantly throughout the day. Typically they will have a cheese, a pepperoni and a vegetable pizza ready if you just want a slice or two. You can also order a whole pie with the toppings you want and they will cook it for you. The pizza was good. I had it a couple of times and thought the quality and taste was consistent. I've definitely had better pizza, but I've also had a lot worse. So that brings us to the specialty restaurants that we tried. The first of which was Chops Grille. This is the specialty steakhouse restaurant. This was definitely a step up in terms of service and quality versus the main dining room, which I already felt was very good. I had the roast slab of bacon appetizer, which was good, but it's really just belly pork. I would rate that about a 6 out of 10. Good, but nothing to get too excited about. My entree, however, was the 9-ounce filet, and it was the best steak I've ever had. I've seen mixed reviews on the steak, but I thought it was fantastic. It was extremely tender, cooked to the correct temperature, and very tasty. I had a baked potato with it, which came with toppings to add yourself. And for dessert, I had the cheesecake. The cheesecake in the main dining room was pretty good, but this again was a step up from that. So the next restaurant we went to was Jamie's Italian, which obviously is the specialty Italian restaurant. I am not a massive fan of Italian food, but Janelle is. There looked to be some good options for me, so we gave it a try. We started with the appetizer plank, which is a selection of meats and cheeses. This was very good. For my pasta course, I had the spaghetti bolognese, which I thought was excellent. I was surprised how big the pasta portion was, as there were still 2 more courses to go. I had the lasagna for my entree, which was excellent. And finally, the waiter surprised us with the dessert plank, which had lemon meringue cheesecake, tiramisu, and a brownie with caramel sauce and popcorn. It was all excellent, but there was just a lot of it, and we were not close to eating all of it. Again, this was a step up from the main dining room experience. The service was excellent, and we had a window with a view into the Central Park area. So the third specialty restaurant we went to was Johnny Rockets. This is located out on the boardwalk area. We visited Johnny Rockets twice. The first time was just to try a milkshake, which was excellent. The second time was to eat lunch. I was very happy with the burger. The fries were just okay, but the onion rings were really good. It cost about $12 per person to eat there, and we had so much food we did not get dessert. The shakes are usually $5 each, but we had the deluxe drink package, so they were included. I would definitely recommend trying this restaurant, but come hungry. So that brings us to category 5, which is our cabin. So on every other cruise we've been on, we have always had a balcony cabin. However, we have talked about trying an inside cabin for a while, especially in the Caribbean. Now this seemed to be the right time to try it, with the theory being that on such a big ship with so much to do and explore, we would not spend all that much time in the cabin. This theory proved to be correct. We spent very little time in our cabin. So the pros of the cabin, I would say it did not feel small. It seemed to me to have similar floor space to balcony cabins we've been in before. The cabin was very clean. The storage was adequate for 2 people. We had a dressing area, a couch, TV, small desk, and a bed. The bathroom seemed about the same as other cabins on board and comparable to other ships we've been on. Now there was one significant con to this cabin, and that was that the bed was awful. It was as hard as a rock. Our cabin steward did her best by adding duvet covers under the sheets, and by the middle of the week it was okay, but the first few days the bed was very uncomfortable. This was not because it was an inside cabin. Another couple we met had the same complaint in their balcony cabin. So a tip we learned was that you can ask for a mattress topper immediately when you get on board. I will say the cabin steward did a great job making it better for us. We did also experience an issue in our cabin. On the very first night, there was 0 hot water. However, we called guest services and they sent someone up from maintenance who opened a few valves and we were good to go. My theory is the cabin had not been occupied since the restart. It only took about 30 minutes or so to resolve, so while it was an issue, it was handled efficiently, so no complaints. Brings us to category 6, which is shows and entertainment. So the main show right now on Harmony of the Seas is Grease. I thought it was excellent, probably the best stage show I've ever seen. The singing was fantastic, the choreography was great, and the stage props, backdrops and lighting effects were all excellent. The second show they had on there was a group of singers called Forever. This is a 4-part singing group of male singers. They're all classically trained singers and obviously very talented. Overall, I enjoyed it. Certainly some songs, like Bohemian Rhapsody, were excellent. We also watched a Love and Marriage game show, which was a typical game show that you've probably seen before, but it was entertaining and funny. We also watched the ice skating show, which was very good and much better than expected. The ice rink is fairly small, but the speeds they reached were pretty impressive. The time passed very quickly, which is always an indicator there was a good entertainment. We also watched the aqua show. I thought the storyline was very predictable and not all that great. There was some impressive acrobatics and some great dives into what is a pretty small pool area. I would say it's worth seeing, but I'm not sure they even need the storyline. We also saw the Schooner Bar piano entertainment with Eric. We spent quite a few hours in the Schooner Bar in the evenings when we had no other show to go to. Cool atmosphere, great service, and a very talented pianist to boot. Eric was great. He had a wide variety in his repertoire and had song lists so you could submit a request. He would walk around talking to people on his break and made an effort to remember names and personalize the show. Where else would you hear Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot on piano? So that brings us to category 7, which is excursions. I will start out by saying this was a bit of a mixed bag. Our first port of call was Costa Maya, and we were scheduled for an excursion to Mayan ruins. We were not able to dock in Costa Maya at all due to the weather conditions of the pier, so that excursion was cancelled. It turned out to be a good thing because we changed to an excursion in Cozumel to Chichen Itzu, which is actually one of the 7 wonders of the world. We had originally been put off this excursion due to the long journey time to get there, so let's talk about this journey. The first part of the journey was using the ferry system to get from Cozumel, which is on an island, to the mainland of Mexico. This was about a 40-minute ride, and on the journey in the morning the sea was a little rough. There were lots of pale faces on the ferry. I'm glad to say that Janelle and I were fine, but that was certainly not the case for many on board. If you are susceptible to travel sickness, you may want to take this into consideration. I will say, however, the sea had calmed significantly for the return journey and it was very smooth coming back to the ship at the end of the day. Once we reached the mainland, we met our tour guide and they walked us from the pier, probably about 15 minutes, to where the bus was waiting. As I mentioned earlier, the reason we had not originally booked this tour was that we were concerned about all the travel time to get there. The night before, when we had actually decided to book, we had talked to someone in the shore excursion area. They had reassured us it was a big bus with a lavatory at the rear. Unfortunately, they were incorrect. It turned out to be a Mercedes Sprinter van converted into a minibus, no bathroom, and 20 seats. These vans usually have 15 seats in them, and putting 5 extra in made it very cramped. I'm only 5 feet 9, Janelle is 5 feet 3, and we were both uncomfortable for the entire 2 hour and 15 minute trip each way. It was a real shame because it spoiled an otherwise excellent excursion. We did complain about it and they gave us a 10% refund, which was probably fair. Just be warned, if you don't have a big group you will probably be in a van. Also, it was supposed to include a virtual tablet experience, but that never materialized. As for the rest of the excursion experience, the guide was excellent, very knowledgeable about the Mayans and their history. He spoke most of the trip to the ruins and we had earpieces we could listen on while we were touring the ruins. The ruins were pretty spectacular. It's amazing to think these were built so long ago with very limited technology. I think there's quite a lot of the site that's still to be uncovered. I would definitely say this site is worth a visit. The other excursions we had were on Coco Cay, which was Royal Caribbean's private island. Our excursions on Coco Cay were disrupted by the weather. We had 2 excursions, one was on jet skis and that was cancelled due to the sea conditions. Our other experience was a day at the Luxury Beach Resort. This started out great. The area had a covered but not rainproof pavilion area, a bar, a swimming pool, and plenty of lounges with tables and umbrellas. We took up our position and relaxed for the morning, and again the service was excellent. Our lunch was scheduled for 1:30 p.m, which was scheduled late because we were supposed to go on the jet skis at 11:30. This was where things went downhill. At about noontime there was a tropical downpour, torrential rain and strong wind for at least 30 minutes. Unfortunately, there was almost nowhere people could go to get out of the rain. The pavilion where people were already eating was not waterproof. It was designed for shade, not protection from the rain. People were sat trying to eat food with rain pouring down on their tables. The rain did stop and we tried to get our dining time moved up. We were actually seated at a table shortly after, but did not get a chance to eat because it started pouring down with rain again. At this point we were soaked, and there was nowhere to get out of the rain. No prospect of eating, so we put on the ponchos Royal Caribbean provided and got the tram back to the ship. I believe we got back to the ship at about 1:30 p.m. We did talk to the shore excursion people and they took 20% off. I was not really happy with that because the food was a big part of that experience and we did not get the opportunity to eat. So before I get to my recommendation for this excursion, I would stress I do realise that Royal Caribbean cannot control the weather even on their own private island. However, they can plan for weather and it was clear they had no plans for this. All it would take is weatherproofing the pavilion so people could sit and eat and stay dry and they could solve this problem. I would not recommend this excursion unless you are okay with eating in the rain or missing out on the food altogether. I would encourage Royal Caribbean to do something about the shelter situation. If they solve that issue, I would highly recommend the excursion, but as it is, I would not book it again. So now for my final thoughts on the cruise. First thing I would say is having cruised with one other cruise company, Royal Caribbean are my clear favourite. I just felt there was a lot of activities going on, lots of things to do on the ship, and that the food, drinks and service in the restaurants and bars was excellent. The shows were fantastic, the onboard talent was great, and the ship was exceptionally well maintained. While we did experience 1 or 2 issues, they were mostly dealt with to our satisfaction. I think that's a measure of any company. Things will always go wrong from time to time, but how they resolve the issues is very important. I cannot wait to cruise Royal Caribbean again and hope to cruise with them again later in 2022. So thanks for watching and have a great day.